Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to be showing you, I'm showing you right now this feature that's a mile-high cliff that's located in the Caribbean Sea. And if you look at this cliff, it's hard to get a sense of how high it is, but I will measure that for you so you can truly understand the scale of this architectural and engineering marvel. At the top, the elevation is around 4,500 feet below sea level. At the bottom, the elevation is around 9,200 feet below sea level. So that's almost a 5,000 foot or a mile high cliff that's located in what is the Caribbean Sea. And I will actually zoom out so that you'll get a better sense of where we are right now. And so this is where we are, where we were originally, and that's Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, which are only a few dozen miles away. Maybe Puerto Rico's around 100 miles away. And so, zooming back in, we'll see that this cliff lies on the western edge of what is an identified geographical formation known as the St. Croix Basin. And I first noticed this feature by looking at this like line that was right here, this black line, and so I wanted to get a sense of what exactly this black line was, and so I this is like my own process of discovery that I went through maybe a few years ago, and so I zoomed in, looked, trying to figure out what it was, and to my surprise, I found that this wasn't just a straight line, but it had three-dimensional structure to it, and more specifically, the altitude of this like smaller cliff here actually increased as I went from left to right, so that it was higher toward the east than it was toward the west. But then I also noticed here. I thought that was it at first, right? Interesting, but nothing too shocking. But then I noticed this. Then I noticed this. This smaller cliff is actually conjoined and connected to this much larger cliff. And this is when I saw this for the first time, I knew when I saw this that this meant that everything that we knew about the history of human civilization was wrong and that it would have to be rewritten. I just fundamentally knew at this most foundational basic level that everything that we had learned about history was wrong. And I still believe that to this day. I believe that this evidence ultimately overthrows all of our traditions. It says that there is something about our past that we don't know, and that discovering that past is going to open up an entire new chapter in our understanding of history. And ultimately, I also agree. I believe that this is the single greatest architectural achievement in the history of humanity. That if you point to that there is nothing in the world that has been built up to now that is greater in its scale and its beauty compared to this that I am showing you right now. And right now, maybe there's about one or two people in the world that have seen this, that have understood this for what it actually is. And there are lots of people who will try to minimize or deny the significance of this structure. There are people who will say it's simply not there, that Google Earth is just generating this image due to some error, that it's an artifact, it's a system glitch. There are people who will say that, but then again, there are people who looked through the telescope in the time of Galileo and said that not that Galileo's interpretations of what he saw weren't the problem, but that what he was seeing in the telescope wasn't actually there. And so the people who say that this isn't actually here are are making the same arguments that ultimately were proven to be wrong against Galileo's observations of the telescope. Now, I'm not saying I'm Galileo, right? But I'm saying that we have a new tool that allows us to see what we weren't able to see before, and that it's not, and that the people who say that this tool is wrong or that it functions incorrectly will ultimately be proven wrong, and that this is actually here. And there are some who will try to say that this is a man-made, a natural geological formation. And I don't have the time to ultimately address that objection because I believe that it's absolutely absurd and that there's no possible way that this could have been made in a man by man. Because look at the incline here. This incline is not just like a vertical cliff. It actually increases linearly as you move from west to east in an almost perfect uh, slope, right? It's not there. There isn't any. It's like a perfect line that increases. It's a perfect slope that increases as you go from west to east, and you just can't. Nature can't create that sort of perfect linear relationship. And where else on Earth do you see cliffs that are like this? You don't see this anywhere. This is a man-made feature. Now the question is, how could this be man-made? Obviously, it means that there was an advanced civilization with engineering and scientific capacities that essentially, at the minimum level, are equal to our own capacities and are very much likely greater. It seems like the only kind of civilization that could create something like this would be a, a civilization that more primitive peoples at the time would have believed to be essentially gods. The idea that a human being could create this even now is almost inconceivable. Now imagine how it was received over 10,000 years ago. The people who built this must have been seen as gods. And these people must have lived over. It's almost unimaginable that this could have been built only a few thousand years ago. This dates back to a time that is before recorded history, a lost chapter of human civilization that throughout this century we are going to slowly discover. And this, in the end, will be seen as the greatest architectural achievement of that civilization.